guys, Preston and Matt here with Nomad Church Collective. You know what? It's our March newsletter. Of course, we're filming it here. It's February 27th and it's 65 degrees outside. It's been a beautiful winter in a lot of ways. We've been able to get on the street and pray with people, speak the gospel to people and that kind of thing, care for those who are in need. But also there's been times where it's cold or rainy and we've had to stay inside and plan. Or one of our favorite things we've got to do this winter is get on the bus.
Yeah, so we've been going out on the bus, and sometimes we have the opportunity to take some people with us to come down, that some friends of ours that might want to get connected in the neighborhood and some of the neighborhoods that we're going into. And so recently, a friend of ours, Steve, got to come down with us, and we took a bus, and this bus route that we usually take takes about 2 hours to do the full loop. We kind of change over and do some things in that, and it's always this really dynamic thing. And just in the middle of that, we had a guy hopped on the bus and we started a conversation with him, and he was describing like he was on his way to work and he was starting to tell me about his work and stuff. And in that moment, like Preston and Steve start talking to a guy, and then that guy gets off and they start talking to each other for a minute about Jesus and the gospel. And then right then a guy that I went to high school with who lives over in Jeffersonville, but he was over in Louisville for something. He hops on the bus and man, he recognizes me, and we start talking, and we begin a conversation. And in the middle of our conversation catching up, he looks over and he hears Preston and Steve talking about Jesus and talking about the gospel. And he looks at me and he says, "Hey man, you see them dudes over there talking about Jesus? I'm gonna try to call them out real quick and see if they know what they're talking about." And I just looked him in the face. I go, do it, right? And so it was like a super favorite moment of mine. And so in that moment, he looks over and he begins to just ask Preston some questions about Jesus and about the gospel and about his ministry and all these things. And Preston was just able to, in the moment, just faithfully, joyfully answer these questions. And every time he answered a question, the guy was like, okay. And he tried another thing, it was like he was gonna stump him or something, right? And each time he was like, okay, and then he finally just said, okay. He's like, I see you are here, ready, prepared, and you know what you're talking about. And that opened up this great conversation with him and with Steve, and Steve began to engage him, and they began to talk about the gospel and talk about scripture. And as they're doing that, this young man in the back, I keep watching him, and he keeps scooting up a little seat and up a little seat another way until he finally was so close that he's just leaning in, and he begins to ask questions that are going on in the middle of this whole ordeal. And so for us, it was a time just to be able to faithfully, joyfully be able to share the gospel with these guys they're on the bus. And the more that happened, the more people on the bus wanted to be involved in that conversation.
As I was sitting there and watching all these conversations take place, I couldn't help but smile at God's providence. Steve, our friend, had this urge to call us up and ride the bus with us, or to walk the neighborhood with us, whatever we were doing that day. And, I really feel like the Spirit put that on his heart, because as we were having these conversations on the bus, and as that young man moved forward a few seats to listen and start challenging those things, it was clear that Steve was the perfect person to engage him in those conversations, because Steve is this great apologist for the gospel, and he was able to answer this young man a lot of these questions that the young man had. And it's such a cool moment where God prompted somebody's heart to reach out, and he did, and there was great fruit because of it. So just a quick word, if God is putting it on your heart to start reaching out in these communities, to walk with us or to walk with somebody else, or to go to a soup kitchen and reach out to the poor, man, listen to that call, because he will use you. He will use you in your unique gifting as well.
Hey, as we are going out into the streets of New Albany and also out into Jeffersonville too, God continues to provide new relationships and new connections to us of partners that we begin to walk with, and we're able to partner with in a way. A lot of these organizations that we're beginning to partner with, they really focus on being able to provide concrete type of programming and resources for individuals, while for us it is sharing the gospel and building relationship is the key. And this is something that is actually this huge part that they're missing in what they do in the organizations, and it's been a great to partner with them.
Yeah, so a way to say what Matt is communicating is a lot of these churches and programs have set themselves up as as more attractive, which is great, and they need people to come to them, but it's hard to get the word out. It's hard to communicate to the poor and marginalized or to the homeless that their programs even exist. So God has set us up to be able to go out and speak to these people and meet them firsthand and point them in the direction of some of these ministries. And we were laughing because it was almost like these organizations we're beginning to partner with are like hospitals with doctors who are really good at connecting people to resources. And God has set us up like EMTs, right? Like we're the ambulance team going out and finding these folks who are hurting, who are in need, and helping them connect to the right places where they need to go.
Yeah, and that's just been really, really an awesome thing. And we ask that you continue to pray about that also. And so we also want to share with you, you kind of see Cardinal Ritter Park in the back of us. That's kind of like a centerpiece here in the neighborhood in New Albany that we're walking in. And we recently made a move to a building that's over here next to the park. And it's a little bit more centrally located to the park, and it really makes it a lot more accessible for us to be over here, to be able to like touch with home base and be able to grab a drink, head back out into the community, or grab in the middle of a storm or something, like grab shelter in there or something. And
the cool thing is because it's right here in the center, as you can see behind us, there's just a flurry of activity here in the neighborhood center. So like I said earlier, if you ever want to go walking with us or experience the neighborhood in some way, man, please come down and hang with us. Just to experience the beauty of this neighborhood. We showed some clips at the beginning of the video from around the neighborhood. There is a lot of brokenness. There's abandoned houses and that kind of thing. But man, there is so much beauty and value in this neighborhood. And the people here are just crying out for love and relationships. Man, we are just so thankful that we get to be a part of what God is doing here. So, yeah.
We love you guys.
That's all we got. We love you guys, and we will see you next month. God bless.